Framery is an industry pioneer and global leader in the engineering and manufacturing of soundproof pods and office booths. Let's warmly welcome to the stage Samu Hällfors, CEO at Framery.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure and actually a honor to be here. So my topic today is all about boring stuff. The stuff that the leaders neglect sometimes because the kind of the key business is it feels more important. It feels more crucial to excel at what you actually are doing in the core business rather than the boring stuff. But before I go to the kind of boring stuff and the whole topic, it's necessary to define some of the kind of things I argue. So basically what I'm saying that, excelling at the boring stuff won't make you successful. Excelling at the boring stuff won't make you grow. But at the same time, I argue that it's impossible to build successful growth company without excelling at the boring stuff. And I go to explain why I think so. And what I mean by the boring stuff, it's important to note that it's all about the analytics, the financials, reporting, processes within an organization of growth company. But I think the great way to kind of, our analogy to growth companies is to explain it through a workshop or garage, not also because most of the growth companies, they kind of start from a garage setting. It's super simple and it starts growing. I have garage like this. It's not particularly in right order, but I know where I can find the screwdriver or the wrench, and it's somewhat tidy. It's probably not as tidy as it would be if somebody would be super organized. I don't have name places for each of the kind of tools, but I do know where to find them. My fiancée uses the workshop as well. She sometimes kind of takes the screwdriver and tightens the screws of kitchen cabinet or so. And she knows that she needs to put the tools in their places where she took them. Sometimes she fails to do so by accident. And another problem is that she needs to call me where she can find the screwdriver because she doesn't have the same kind of silent knowledge that I do. Now imagine when we will someday start having kids. Then we will have 4 different persons using the same tools, not having the rules to where to put them, and misplacing them every now and then. And soon enough, it would take me hours to find that screwdriver that I used to know where it would be. And this is kind of what happens in growth companies as well. When you start growing, things will get misplaced. Things will start falling apart. Not as quickly, but it will happen. And for this setting or kind of this phenomenon, I've kind of found that it follows quite well the second law of thermodynamics, which means that the chaos will increase in the function of time if new energy is not introduced to the system. And I have made an amendment to the law. It's not peer-reviewed yet, but I think it applies quite well. And it goes so that the entropy or the chaos will increase exponentially as a function of revenue in a growth company. And if you have worked in a growth company, you know this happens. The chaos and the amount of chaos will increase if there are no energy put into mitigating that. Now, why does it happen? Every single CEO and entrepreneur and company wants to be super efficient. They want to be well-functioning. They want to be working like a clock. But us entrepreneurs, we do have one kind of particular problem in our mindset. we mostly always underestimate the scalability of the organization as it is. We think that, we built this process, we built this organization, we can handle these orders, we can handle these deliveries. Why shouldn't we be able to do it in larger scale with the same system? And it doesn't really matter at which stage of the company you kinda are. It's always that you're quite optimistic on the scalability of the system you're built. And this is why it happens. But this is how companies really kind of start. It's like taking a moped and taking it to the highway. You don't have any processes. It's inexplainable how many different processes you need to build when you start a company and when you start growing the company. And you start with nothing. People that come from a kind of more mature companies to growth companies, they're always kind of stunned how there are no processes. How can you function without these processes? But somebody needs to build them. And you need to build them fast because in most cases, if you build a process, it takes a year and it's already kind of done. It's not sufficient anymore if you're in growth mode. And some of the companies, they get VC funding. Yes, so you basically bolt a rocket engine in a moped, and most likely the processes will be done before they are actually in place. One particular kind of good example of this, it's not exactly a process, but fun thing, we were supplying office pods to Twitter when they were in their fastest growing phase. And they were building new offices all the time. And when the office building or the office space was kind of finalized, it was already too small for the company. And this happens in kind of high growth companies in all of the processes, all of the kind of phases of, and all of the arenas of the company. But the problem is that all of the entrepreneurs and CEOs also fear of getting or turning into corporates, in the boring, bureaucratic, slow, incapable of moving and being competitive in the market. And also, this is also true because us entrepreneurs, when we get to the phase that we should have processes in place, we have built the success on being agile and nimble. We have built the success and being able to concentrate on the core business of the company. And in that phase, it doesn't fly anymore. And I think that the defining moment when it doesn't fly anymore is when the company has 4 layers in the organization. Starts to have 4 layers. Because that's the defining moment when the management team or the core team doesn't have visibility to all of the things that happen in the company anymore. And when you lose that sight, somebody else will be supervising the lowest level of the organization. You need to have visibility and processes in place that actually kind of replace you being there all the time. And you need to start building these processes and systems and the boring stuff before that happens. For us at Framery, it kind of happened when we were at somewhere around 150 employees. And once that happened, we were lucky to have some good processes, and we did some good investments already before that. But once that happens, that the core team loses sight, kind of in-person sight to what happens in the lowest level, it takes years to build that same context knowledge to the new layer of supervisors who are supervising what actually happens. I'd say it takes, at least for us, took 3 years to build the same context that we used to have. And we need to have some control during that 3-year phase. I was lucky. I was super lucky because we had a board that told us kinda this. And back in 2016, our revenue was around 5 million a year, and we did overinvest in our systems. We did end up implementing a NetSuite to our business, and good example actually for this event. And it's still working today. We are at 150 million a year, and we have no reason to believe that it wouldn't grow with us if we invest in it and we keep on developing it. But we over-invested in the right time, and it saved us millions on the way. All right. And by the way, I think our timing was perfect. So the timing of when you start investing in the systems, in the processes, to build the boring stuff that support this growth phase, I think the right timing is when you have the first concrete proof of traction in the market. When you see that now the growth curve starts, you need to believe that the investment is worthwhile. If it's not, the company will not grow as fast. But then is it's necessary investment to build a successful growth company. I believe so. And also based on this, as I mentioned, once you build a new process, once you build a new organization model, once you build a new way of working, it starts to disintegrate the exact moment when it's placed and start working with the new system. Because people will change and you will grow and things will change and new regulation will be applied to your business. And it will start disintegrating, and what it makes the work of the management less of a, let's say, air show pilot that you fly by gut feeling and your experience, and it turns your work into airline pilot that flies with instruments and knowledge. You need to see what happens in different parts of your organization in order to be successfully fixing what's broken, seeing what needs to be fixed and what's disintegrating at the moment. And if you excel in doing this process, constant process of fixing what's getting broken when you grow, then you are building a machine that it's robust, it's agile enough, it's error correcting by itself, and works like a clock. And I think that makes a successful growth company. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Samu, for an inspiring keynote. We would also like to give the opportunity to the audience here as well to ask any questions of Samu.
Feel free.
Before I check the online version here, if there are some questions, do we have any questions in the audience? I'll have one question here from Johanna. Johanna asks, what has been the biggest growth challenge for Framery? And then also to follow up, how was it solved?
Well, it's super hard to point one growth challenge. I think one of the biggest challenges for us was building an international organization with multicultural setting, different subcultures in different countries, and make those parts of organization really work together well, and not being in the bubble of Finland HQ, understanding the markets, explaining how markets work to the next level leaders that we are growing in the company. So I think it's mainly growing the people to understand the business rather than any specific angle of the business.
Okay. I somehow recognize those comments that you are saying from Staria's point of view as well. All right. Sini also have a question here. I'd like to hear what has been the biggest learning point or challenge for yourself as a CEO.
Well, I think for me myself, I see my own career or path with the company. I see it in different phases. First, it was kind of entrepreneurial, kind of startup entrepreneurial phase where we need to kind of dig the ditch and do whatever it takes to make the company fly or even kind of stay alive. Then the next phase was kind of this scaling phase when we started scaling from 1 million to 100 million. We did it in 4.5 years, which I think it's one of the kind of fastest with own production in Finland ever. Not probably the fastest, but one of the fastest. That was one phase. But the biggest kind of turning point was maybe 2018 when kind of the organization was already above 200 employees. We were truly global leader in our category, and I needed to change my attitude from entrepreneur CEO to kind of professional leader CEO. I need to kind of dump the idea of kind of the owner entrepreneur to be really good leader for the company. You know, when you get to the scale, you need to change yourself to fit the company, or otherwise there will be somebody else who is better to do it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else here in the audience? If we have a minute, but if not, I think that it was a good start there.
Thank you.